All right. It's Sunday, May 2nd, a few days after this tragedy that happened in Meron on Lag Bomer, where we lost 45 holy souls. Just crazy, unbelievable news that's not normal. Um, Very hard to think about. I'm just making this video because I was nearby the event where it all went down, the steps on the ramp, and I just want to tell people what I saw and what like led up to this whole situation. Um, just to like give people who have never been there in Meron or who have been, and just to see, because a lot of people are asking what happened, and it's just, I don't know, it helps me, I guess, just to speak about it, because I saw some very hard things over there. I just want to make it clear that I was not in the actual crush. I was not in the stampede, thank God. I don't think the word stampede is the proper word that people say not to use it. It was more of a crush. I didn't see anybody running or pushing people. It was just the way that things were set up over there is not. Um, it's just not the correct way to set things up. So I'll just say what I saw, where exactly I was. I was extremely close by. So basically, in in Meron, there's one main building where Rabbi Shimon is buried, and it's not like a regular square building. There's many different sections of it, and in the back of this building is one of the main fires where they light the fires on Lag Bomer. Um, it's like a big parking lot, and everybody dances on there. Obviously, there's no cars there at that time of the year. They put bleachers up, and as you can see from some of the videos, you already saw what I'm talking about. Um, so to get to this parking lot, to get to this fire area, you need to go on the left side of the building and the left side of the burial situation of the complex or whatever it was. And on the left side, so first, the problem that arises right away is that you have a huge open space in front of the building where there's many people, men and women, and then all the men are trying to get to the left side and go down 10, 15 stairs, and then they have to walk about 100 feet to those stairs where the accident and tragedy happened. And you have a lot of people trying to, a very wide amount of people trying to funnel into a smaller area. So you have a very, very packed area there. And then everybody goes up these steps, even being further packed, and then it opens up into this ramp, and then that opens up a little further, but then it closes again. So you have all these waves and shifts of people moving around and getting pushed and shoved, and right away this year I noticed that there was more people than usual, and the reason for that is, I think, was because that the usually Lag Bomer would fall out in the middle of the week, or the first night would be after Shabbos on Saturday night, so people have time to go on Saturday night, and then people come on Sunday, or in the afternoon, or at the end of the day. And many of the big Hasidic Rebbes, many of the big tzaddikim who light fires in Meron, they actually do the fires at the end of the day, at the end of Lag Bomer, the end of the day. So there usually isn't that many people. This year, since Lag Bomer was on Thursday night, going into Shabbos, going into the Sabbath, a lot more people came up on Thursday night, and I don't think that they were properly prepared for that situation. So what I saw is that I came to Meron at about 11 o'clock, and I was hanging out at somebody's house over there with some friends, and I was like, all right, it's time to go up to pray. So I went up to the burial area where you pray and sing and dance or whatever, and I actually was praying about 5 feet from those stairs. If you've seen the videos of the event, you see there's like these white metal walls. I was standing against one of those walls, and praying, and things were pretty calm over there. It's just people were walking by me to get to that area to watch the fire. What is it called? The Toldos Aaron Rebbe was lighting a fire there. They call it that section. He lights a fire there every year. So I prayed there for about 15-20 minutes, and I was davening there, and I walked up those stairs. Right, and I said, okay, now I'm going to go to the fire. I was not with anyone. I was by myself, and I was just planning on going to Meron, in and out. I'm going to go back home. I live in Tzfat, so I go to those stairs, and I walk up those stairs, and then right away, as I walk up those stairs, I see policemen, two policemen right behind me. They close off those stairs with two gates. Okay, and I don't know if those gates remained there later on, as people said, but I did see them closing off that area with two gates. They were saying that there's already too many people in the back, right? So I went to the back, and right away when I got to that area in the back, I already noticed that something is like extremely wrong with the amount of people that were back there. Like, I've been going to Meron for 14 years, for every single Lag Bomer, and I've been on that floor many times. In that area, I felt stuffed and a little bit crushed and whatever, but there was room to breathe. This time, I got in there, and the second I got in there, I was trapped. I was literally trapped. Um, I was surrounded by people. There was more people coming from the other direction where the entrance was still open. There's another entrance that way, and I kept on getting pushed. It was getting extremely hard to breathe. There was a lot of people um, pushing and shoving. It's not their fault. The people just you don't know how it. I mean, I don't think anybody wanted anybody to, chas v'shalom, be injured or pushed or fell down, but one person moves and tries to go this way, and then you have 100 people trying to go different ways. Everybody was trying to get some air. Everybody was trying to escape, right? So we're all standing there, and we're like literally stuck. And I'm kind of like freaking out. Like, I've never been like I said, I've been in this situation before where I was surrounded by many people in that area, but never like this. Like, I could not move. My beard was being pulled, my beard was getting caught in between two people and being pulled this way. My shirt was being pulled this way. My shirt was ripped at the end, pulled off of me. So I'm sitting there, and the Rebbe, I think it was the Toldesan Rebbe, they were doing the preparations for the fire. So they poured the oil, and what's it called, and they sing all these songs and say Tehillim, everything like that. And I was with a few American yeshiva guys that I just met there, and they were also like, everybody was like freaking out. I wasn't talking to the Israelis, I was talking to these American guys. I was telling them not to push, let's just stand here. And they were like, what do we do? How do we get out of here? This is crazy. And we were all like, yo. And I said to them, I was like, when the Rebbe lights the fire, we'll be able to move, because everybody will start jumping and dancing, and fine. So I saw that I was trapped in this area, and that it was getting really, really bad. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to move back away from, I guess, the fire area, from when everybody started dancing. I was trying to move back. There's also steps in the back of the caver, in the back of the burial complex, that a lot of women were standing on. And I was trying to get back over there. Um, and I was trying to move back, and then you couldn't move, like, no matter what. And I ended up being pushed up against the wall, and there was just no room for people. There was this big guy just leaning on me. He had nowhere to move. There was little kids that was very hard to breathe. Their fathers were picking them up in the air. People were picking them up to like get breath, and then putting them back down. And people were throwing water just so that people can drink and not pass out. And I was saying, like, Rebbe, like, under my breath, I was like, you gotta light this fire. Like, we need to escape over here. And I will say that I personally witnessed. I was standing there. I witnessed, like, when we were being crushed and we were being like all stuck together. There was absolutely no attempt to split the crowd up, and I saw police officers on top of me, a few steps up from where I was. They were actually pushing people back down into the crowd who were trying to escape. So that's what I saw, and I was pretty angry, and like I didn't really know what to do. I was just kind of like, I was bugging out. I was like, this is like, if somebody moves the wrong way right now, like, we could all fall down. Like, it was getting very scary, and they didn't have service on my phone. I wanted to try to call my wife, tell her I was okay or whatever. It was very intense. Fine. So then finally the Rebbe lit the fire, and we were able to actually dance. So we started dancing. I started dancing a little bit, but I was very knocked out just from being in that whole situation. And I decided, okay, I want to go back home now. I danced for 5 minutes. I was yotzi. I did what I needed to do. I started walking back towards that ramp area where the tragedy unfolded. And thank God, this random Hasidic guy who was walking by me, it's all chaotic and there's a lot of noise and everything. He just said to me, he's like, don't go that way. There's way too many people. They already closed it off. I said, okay, fine. So then I was like, okay, fine. Now I have to fight through 10,000 people dancing to get to the other side of this whole situation. And then there was these four American guys next to me, four yeshiva guys, who said to me, I hope I can find them one day. They said to me, like, do you know this area? And I said, yeah. They're like, okay, we need to get out of here. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, follow me. So we just fought our way through this crowd. It took us about 5-10 minutes, I would say. And they somehow made it with me. I don't even know. I didn't even really keep track of where they were. I had like lost them in the first 5 feet. But then at the end of the whole thing, I found them again. They were behind me, and they were like, "Whoa, we made it!" And I was like, "Yeah." And as we got out, that exit on the other side is a big hill. And as I was going up that hill, there was 50 Hatzalah guys coming down the hill. Right. So we thought, okay, they were running to a guy who, there's always people fainting or whatever. It's hot. Um, then all of a sudden, so then I was up and I started walking back out towards like the front of the area to go down the mountain to go back to the buses. And when I got out to the front, right in front of the Tzion was what's it called? Was already three ambulances and a fire truck. And I was like, whoa, what is happening right now? Then all of a sudden my service came back, and my phone started beeping with all these alerts and stuff. And I saw one alert from an Israeli news app that I follow, and it said that there's something happened in by Rabbi Shimon, a lot of people injured, something collapsed. So I didn't really understand what's going on, so I showed it to some Israelis next to me. They're like, what? Then all of a sudden, over the loudspeakers came the message, everybody leave the mountain right now. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. We started walking down the main road out of Meron to go down to the bottom, and it was just complete chaos. And there was ambulances and Hatzalah guys and army and police and emergency forces and Magav, border police, everybody just running up the mountain towards the situation, and which was also a disaster because everybody's trying to run down the mountain, they're trying to run up. So the ambulances could not get up towards the area of where they needed to, so they just pull. So they were just pulling out the stretchers into this to roll up the mountain. And then I walked a little bit further. I was taking phone calls. People were calling me. My wife was calling me. People were calling me. I said, I'm going to come home. I'm going to do this. So I was waiting on the side. All of a sudden, you see stretcher after stretcher. I must have counted 6 or 7 stretchers running by me with paramedics pushing them, like the fastest I've ever seen a stretcher be pushed in my life, with bodies on them. And there was just, Haredi women and girls crying, leaning against the wall, just freaking out. And what's called, so yeah, so just to go back to this incident, this thing, so this ramp that you go into, like I said before, it opens up from the staircase onto this ramp that goes up, and then you enter into the fire area. So everybody was going back that way, and from what I understand and from what people are telling me is that the police still had those barricades up that I saw them put up 30 minutes before, or they took them down and put them back up again. I don't know, but everybody was walking down this ramp area, which is extremely dangerous, and because it was slippery, because everybody's drinking water and then throwing the bottles there. So everybody was walking down this ramp, and then at the end of it is a flight of steps. So if you have 5,000 people walking down the ramp in the pitch black, there's only one railing to hold on to. And then all of a sudden somebody misses a step, so that's it. Everybody just fell on top of each other, and there's just too many people. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming Chas v'Shalom, the Charedim, the Hasidim. I'm not blaming the police. You know what I'm saying? Until there's obviously a full investigation, but there definitely was a failure of crowd control, and there were, according to what I read before I went to Meron, that there was supposed to be, certain sections. They were going to limit certain sections. And, I did see the police close the gates behind me when I went into that area, but at that time there was already way too many people in that area. And the way that whole walkway from the beginning of the caver to the back of the caver, the way that it's set up, it looks like a 6-year-old like constructed it. It looks like it's just like they add on like a new section, like every year, like, oh, let's just add on this and like this. It's not constructed well, and it caused this crazy thing. I think that's just what happened. There was nothing that collapsed. There wasn't a stampede. It was just a crush of too many people at once. and yeah, and then so 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 I was running down the mountain, walking down the mountain to try to get out of there. And the craziest thing was that there was people coming to Meron at that time. There was buses that had arrived during this situation. People didn't hear the news, so I bumped into some friends who were coming up the mountain. They were all excited. They had guitars and whatever. They were all like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to Rav Shimon." And then I was like, "Guys, turn around right now!" Like, what are you talking about? I was like, "People are dying already." There's rumors, already running around. And I was hearing people on the street talk, and they were like, "What are you talking about? Nothing happened." I was like, "No, what are you saying? Everything happened." And then there were just people that were turned around. A few of my friends in Tzfat were almost in almost there, and their bus was already turned around because like a lot of the buses go to Tzfat. Um, and I want to say I did see one thing that I will never forget was that I saw one of the stretchers had paramedics pushing, like four or five paramedics pushing um, a stretcher, and a different paramedic was on the stretcher. I don't know how he was on the stretcher, not on top of the guy, or he was hanging off the side of it, and he was doing CPR on the guy, and it was just complete chaos. This woman with strollers just running around, and it was just a mess, and I just still can't believe it. But there obviously needs to be major changes on what happens over there. I think the cops definitely could have done a better job of the crowd control, even if people say, "Oh, the Haredim wouldn't have listened" or whatever. But just to limit the amount of people that were already in there. It was like people already saw earlier in the night that I spoke to, and other people, and they said there was way too many people. There was a guy I saw who just woke up in the hospital now. He said the last thing he remembers was that he was on that in that area. He wasn't even on the ramp. He was in that area. I'm saying, like, he was pushed towards that area. It wasn't you couldn't control what was happening. So it's like just a crazy thing. Thank God I was able to make it to a bus before they shut down the buses, because I heard that they shut down the buses after. And I ran onto a bus, and I got back to Tzfat. And on the way to Tzfat, all you saw was, because they were bringing all the people to Tzfat, to the Ziv hospital here. It's the only hospital in this area. All you saw on the road were just ambulances after ambulance after ambulances. It was helicopters flying in the air, people calling me like crazy, and the whole thing was just a disaster. And obviously, I'm not gonna say a spiritual reason or what did we learn from this. I don't know anything. All I know is that this was a disaster on a very happy, joyous day for Klal Yisrael. All types of people are in Meron. As you can see, there was many different types of from different Hasidic groups, and Litvish and Sephardi people and Hasidic, and it doesn't make a difference. We're all one. We're all Jewish, and it's just that there could have been a better situation with these steps and that ramp. That ramp was already talked about for a few years. For sure, it was slippery because when I walked up it towards the dance floor, it was already slippery with water and food. And I hope that they take that thing away and figure out a way to get people from one side if Lag BaOmer ever happens again in there by Rabbi Shimon. If it ever happens again, they have to figure out a way to get people to move from one side of the area to a different side without, because there was just too many people, too much, just yeah. So that's what I saw. This from the beginning, it was going to be a disaster from what I saw on that dance floor, and we have to keep davening for the people that are injured and not blame religious people or Haredim don't know how to behave and all of that. Like it's just I saw many people like nobody wanted to push anybody to die. People just there's just no control when there's that many people, and there needs to be something that I think needs to be figured out regarding that situation. But I'm okay, a little shooken up just from seeing the bodies, and just I could have been on that ramp if not for that random Hasidic guy who told me stop and turn around right now, and I did not want to stop and turn around, because to go the other way was to go through 10,000 people that were dancing, and to go back the other way was like 20 feet. So that's what happened. And yeah, that's all.